Greetings, Tezos Nation. Welcome to another edition of TezTalks Live. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. Joining me today is Imran Haqeem, Deputy Head of Lab Strategy at TZ APAC. TZ APAC, for those who might not know, is the Tezos organization focused on Tezos growth and adoption in the Asia-Pacific region. Imran is joining us to talk about Fortify Labs, TZ APAC's new startup studio supporting Web3 projects to realize their vision here in the Tezos ecosystem. On today's stream, we'll be giving away 25 Tez to one of our lucky viewers. If you'd like that lucky viewer to be you, keep an ear out for a keyword later on during the stream. Then comment with the keyword below this video where it's posted by the @Tezos Commons account on X. Hi, Imran. Where are you right now, and how is the weather?
Hey. I'm actually based in Malaysia, though my team is based in Singapore. But yeah, the weather is amazing. It's really early in the morning, but super happy to be here and speak to you guys.
Fabulous. To get the ball rolling, can you tell us a little bit about your background and your personal journey into the exciting world of blockchain technology?
Yeah, sure. So, I found out about, to the very start, I found out about crypto, while I was sort of playing video games with my friends in high school. And that's sort of when I decided to buy Bitcoin for the first time. So that was like in 2017. But I was in school and sort of studying, so I was sort of more focused on that side. And life went on. I studied mechanical engineering in the UK for a bit, and right before I was supposed to do my master's year, I ended up COVID happened, so I came back to Malaysia and started working in engineering, and I very quickly realized that, like, hey, this is not what I wanted to do. So I started exploring going into tech, and back in the day as well, like Tezos was one of the names that I sort of saw on my screen on the exchanges and etc. So when I saw an opening up in TZ APAC, I applied straight away, and yeah, eventually got into the role. So I would say, like, Tezos is like my breakout from like traditional engineering, and I've been here for 2.5 years since then, and yeah, have had an amazing time working with founders and projects alike.
Right on. So this journey, of course, has led you to being Deputy Head of Lab Strategy at TZ APAC, which, of course, is the reason why you're here today. Can you talk a bit about TZ APAC as an entity and what its mandate is?
Sure. So I mean, TZ APAC has been around for quite a bit, right? So when I just started, we were focused a lot on sort of building the community and building up, the art side of Tezos specifically. So we did a bunch of events like Art Basel Hong Kong. We did Art Moments Jakarta, Art Science Museum in Singapore as well. So there were a lot of those initiatives, and we worked really closely with artists. So and I guess the broader mandate is adoption in general, right, of Tezos in the region, both on like the project side and the sort of community side as well. And naturally Tezos has a sort of footing in art. So if you go to like some of the communities in Indonesia right now, the artist community is super strong, super vibrant. So we were very focused on that. But we did have uh, adoption mandate as well, in terms of like getting projects to be built within the region as well. So when I started, small grants program just sort of began, and then we were essentially giving small grants to teams all around the region, and that's how it sort of evolved slowly into what it is today. I would say like today, we're really focused on helping entrepreneurs and helping them realize their visions, their growth goals. And over the years, we've sort of built a large community in general in APAC. So
Mm.
now it's about sort of bridging that gap as well between like the projects and the community,
Okay,
and making like an ecosystem that sort of helps each other.
I see. So in the endeavor to do that and to create that ecosystem, what is your role at TZ APAC as Deputy Head of Lab Strategy exactly?
Yep. So yeah, I mean, as you mentioned before, the focus that we have now is a startup studio called Fortify Labs, and essentially Fortify Labs is we're gonna get a bunch of startups, and the sort of tagline is like we're your growth accomplice. So we're gonna actually sit down and work with you, spend the time and the months to help you find your customers, etc. So my role within that is essentially, both laying out the strategy behind the program and sort of making sure that it's in line with like what the startups need, right? So, over my sort of 2.5 years working in TZ APAC, I have worked really closely with founders, and Fortify Labs is essentially the product of like constant iteration of what we've been doing, right? And now we're at the point where, okay, we know like based on the feedback we got, this is what startups need, and my job is essentially to operationalize it. So once the studio sort of announces the first cohort, that's when the work really starts, right? And I would say my job then would sort of shift towards spending my day to day sitting down, speaking to the startups, understanding their needs, thinking of ways to like go to market with them, and meeting them with like the resources that we have, and yeah, I mean, I think what I would say as well is that over my years at TTA Pack, like I've definitely found a love with working with startups and founders in general. Like working really closely with them and building their relationship and the vibe, I think is super important. So I would say there's a vibe element to it as well.
Right on. How did you first come into contact with Tezos, and what made you decide that this was the blockchain ecosystem where you wanted to get involved?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So as I mentioned, right, when I got into this, when I first started buying crypto in like 2017, Tezos was like one of the names that was up there. So it had like I knew about it, but I didn't really dig into it deep at the time. So when I did see like, hey, there's a entity in APAC, that's great, and that's when I started sort of um, really digging deep into exactly what Tezos was. And I think at the time like forks were a big topic of conversation. So when I read sort of the Tezos white paper and what it's meant to do, it definitely it just like I understood like the sort of reason why that needed to be. So from my perspective, it was a very compelling option for me. And yeah, I mean, transactions were really cheap as well, right? And compared to like anything that was popular at the time, like Ethereum. So yeah, I mean, it was sort of a natural. Sort of naturally fell into it, and it got even better when I joined TZ back and sort of met the people there as well. And yeah, I mean, I would say my time here has been nothing short of amazing, and the people here has definitely it's definitely a big influence on why why I was attracted to come in and why I decided to stay. And I think when I joined, we we travel a bit, and we met so many different people around the world, and with such like a variety of people as well, from artists to entrepreneurs to developers, and like and sometimes the intersection of those kinds of people as well. So I think it's really the people and the community that make Tezos interesting. And like there are there are people that have on Twitter, especially, there are people who have been so loyal to Tezos for the past how many years, right? It's like they're on something, I think.
Excellent. So, as I mentioned earlier, and you already touched on this a bit, but you're here to talk mainly about TZ APAC's new Fortify Labs incubator slash accelerator initiative.
Yep.
Can you intro Fortify Labs and its mandate a bit? Get a bit deeper into that for those who might not be super familiar just yet.
Okay, sure. Um, yeah, maybe I can start. I mean, I can take it a bit back, right? So, like when I said when I started in TTA Pack, that was when the small grants was sort of going on. So when we were initially rolling that out, I would say it was like pretty bare bones in terms of like we were focused on like, hey, if you're an interesting project and you need a bit of initial capital, like let's see what we can do there. But very quickly we realized that we should be doing more, and we know that like capital alone isn't enough, right? We need to work with these people, we need to spend time with these people and give them like the resources that they need. So that sort of that naturally evolved to what was the incubator program.
Mm.
And the incubator program at the time was essentially like 3 months of like focused on like building and getting an MVP out. um, so we ran sort of two cohorts of that, and we met a bunch of founders, learned a lot about what they need and the issues that they face when they're trying to build their startup. And one of the things that we realize is that, hey, we're still not spending enough time with these guys, because they're building the product is one part of it, but actually going to market and like getting revenue, being sustainable, and getting customers is just as important.
Mm.
So the next sort of evolution naturally led to what's Fortify Labs now, what we call Startup Studio. And it's exactly that, where we spend like the first sort of 3 months making sure that the product is ready to go to market, and then the next 5 months is us finding customers, partners for you. If you want to raise capital, we'll help with that. Or we have a bunch of sort of resources that we provide as well, from technical support to advisory, mentorship, legal support, etc. And all these sort of services, and the way we've structured it is based on all of our experiences in the past. So like I think having the time to, and I mentioned before, like the vibe is sort of important as well. So I think spending the time with these founders and like building that relationship with them is super important. Like
Mm.
that's one thing I would say, like a lot of people sort of get wrong. Like I think like sincerity in building startups, and like sincerity in support, and like building a relationship with the startup is like one of the most important things in these kind of operations. Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, startup founders are entrepreneurs, right? They
Mm.
have a big dream, and we are the mere sort of facilitators and people to support them to get there. When I sort of read about, I love Paul Graham and some of his essays that he's written. Like Paul Graham is the founding partner at Y Combinator, and he always talks about the relationship of the partners in general. But his wife Jessica Livingston is sort of part of Y Combinator as well, and he always described Jessica as like an integral part of Y Combinator, and it was he used the word like maternal, where she was almost like a sort of mother to these, especially the early days of Y Combinator. And I think that says a lot. Like I think the path of a startup is like often treacherous. So having like that sort of maternal figure, having those people that you can rely on, you can lean on and trust, I think is super super important. So, I mean, that's part of what I focus on Fortify Labs as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, really, the goal of Fortify Labs is to help startups become successful, help startups achieve profitability, get to the point where um, they can continue to grow, where
Mm.
they are already a business rather than a startup. Yeah.
Okay. So, what can you tell us about some of the startups that have applied? Like, what types of projects are they?
Yeah, so we're still in the midst of finalizing the cohort, so I won't go into detail as to the cohort itself. But I think we've definitely seen a lot of interest across the region and outside the region as well. So there are like some startups from Europe, for instance, that are applying, and it strategically makes sense for them because they are thinking of like going to market in the APAC region or something, which we could have helped. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I would have expected a lot of. I mean, there are a lot of people who applied specifically from APAC, but from America and sort of Europe as well. But in terms of like the type of projects, I would say it's quite broad. So there is still um, kind of an emphasis on NFTs, I guess, but we're definitely seeing more DeFi. We're definitely seeing more gaming related startups, and even AI related startups joining as well. So I mean, I think generally speaking, in crypto, it's a super exciting time. So yeah, I mean, we've seen, quite good demand, and we're I think this cohort is going to be a banger.
Okay. And so it sounds like being in Asia Pacific is not a prerequisite for applying to participate in
Uh,
Fortify Labs.
it isn't. So I would say, we would, because of, I mean, there are sort of challenges associated with like working with a
Of
startup,
course.
say with in the US, right? Just the time difference and stuff like that is just a bit more difficult to sort of work closely with them. So generally speaking, we would prioritize like startups that are applying in APAC. But like if if the product is compelling enough and we see that the team is like driven and interesting, then yeah, I mean, there's no particular reason why we wouldn't help them with that. Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of the teams behind them, like who are the people behind these projects? Like you're saying, they're not necessarily people from Asia Pacific. They could be from all over the world.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the people involved?
Yeah. So I would say, when we did the incubator, for the past couple of years, we were focused on sort of early stage projects, right? So a lot of them were, hackathon winners or students who were like trying to spin off into a business, and some of them were like, fairly established businesses and stuff like that. But this time around, it's different. I mean, we do have a very quite strict criteria when it comes to selecting. One of which is like, hey, if you join Fortify Labs, you have to go to market in sort of 3 months. So because of that, the maturity of startups is generally much higher. So,
Mm,
all of these, a lot of who I think our potential cohort is going to be, fairly established entrepreneurs who have founded companies in the past and are doing their sort of new venture now. So yeah, I mean, in terms of, I would say like the cohort is actually fairly young, but it's a super experienced cohort, so, nonetheless.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how did you get the word out about Fortify Labs in Asia Pacific? Like how did you connect with the people and the entities who are building these projects?
Um, so, I mean, we there was definitely a marketing element on it. We post, I mean, we like I said, right, we built up sort of this community over the years, so we use all those channels to find the entrepreneurs where they are. But a fair amount of demand actually came from our own efforts reaching out to startups individually as well. I mean, yeah, over the years of running the incubator and speaking to people, we have sort of developed a sort of wide network of entrepreneurs in general. So we kind of had like a hit list of people that were like, hey, we want these people because they're super interesting. We
Yeah.
really like what they're doing. So we approached them and asked if they wanted to join, and most of them were really excited to work with us. So yeah, interestingly enough, there was a lot of like, sort of BD kind of um, a way of getting startups. But we also have, we're also really close with the AWS people here, and they have access to a huge list of entrepreneurs as well. So we work with them on that. And yeah, other than that, I think it's mostly sort of marketing on Twitter and
Mm.
posting on Telegram and stuff like that.
And those efforts have paid off. Like you've had the number of applicants for it that you had hoped for.
Yeah, I mean the demand has been really good, and I think more importantly, the quality has been really good as well.
Mm,
So I was expecting a wider variety in terms of quality, but I think we set the standard like high enough that like the quality of projects is just really good. And yeah.
very cool. So once you set that high bar and have these qualified applicants coming in and submitting their proposals, what kind of supports are the Fortify Labs team offering to the applicants who are accepted exactly?
Yeah, so like, I mean, so generally speaking, Fortify Labs has sort of two phases, and I would say it's quite flexible how the phase plays out, but it's the build phase and the growth phase. So I mean, the build phase, as the name sort of suggests, is focused on getting the product to a state where it's ready to go to market. So during that phase, you can imagine we have technical advisors, we have developers, we have designers, and the point is to accelerate your go to market. Um, but once it goes into the growth phase, then it's different sort of support already. There's legal support. If you want to sort of launch a token, we can help with tokenomics and connecting you to like you know capital partners or listing partners. We have cloud credits that we can disperse. It comes with I mean, in the build phase, it will come with the grant as well. So that amongst uh, so those are I would say those are sort of some of the resources that we provide externally, but I would say a lot of the value comes from the support that we provide internally, which is essentially our business development and marketing team. And the idea behind that is that you join Fortify Labs and you have two teams constantly looking for customers and partners for you. So yeah.
Okay. So is there a roadmap for taking these projects from where they're currently at and getting them out into the wild?
Yeah, so I would say like I mean startups are I mean each of them have a unique sort of path, right? So part of the way we design Fortify Labs is that we want it to be flexible and accommodating to each type of according to their needs, right? Like so one of the first things that we'll do with these startups when they join is that we're gonna essentially sit down and strategize with them. Like I mean we have from the conversations that we've already had, we have like quite a good idea of what they want to do and what it takes to get there. But really the work starts when they come on board, and then we'll really lay the foundation in detail of like what do you need, how what's the best way to get there, who do you want to speak to, all those kind of things. And each startup will have its sort of individual strategy or path, you could put it that way, and the team will just work towards achieving those. Yeah.
Okay. And ultimately, as a team, even with that support, there's only so far you can get without having outside people get involved and begin experimenting with the actual product. And I understand Fortify Labs is currently looking for people in the ecosystem who are willing to get involved as early adopters and as testers.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what that involvement will look like?
Yeah, 100%. So, I think from a startup's perspective, really the only thing you should be focusing on is like your users and making sure that like you're building something that people actually want. And the way to do that is essentially to have constant cycles of iteration between like you building and you speaking to users and getting feedback from them. So yeah, so that's one of the things that Fortify Labs really wants to do, which is like build a tight knit community of early adopters and product testers, and facilitate that relationship, right? So that they want to go to market, they want to get feedback, and it's sort of instant in that regard. Um, so I mean, I would say it's really valuable from the startup perspective, but I think it's also valuable from the sort of people who might be joining if they are thinking of ways of how to get sort of involved in the Tezos ecosystem. They want sort of early access to products and to to meet like entrepreneurs and see the interesting things that they're building. That's definitely the best way to do it, right? Um, so I think the initiative will pretty much start like in the build phase itself. So once the program starts, and we'll sort of start facilitating that already. But I think you can probably find the details on our Twitter if you are interested in joining. It's probably going to be mostly sort of APAC timing, so just be mindful of that. But yeah, I would say anybody can join, right? If you have an interest in startups, if you have an interest in products, and you are interested in expressing your thought and what you think the product could do better, that's definitely the kind of person that we're looking for. Yeah.
Are there incentives available for people
Oh,
who decide to participate?
yeah, so I believe there's community rewards sort of attached to it, but there's also some exclusive swag, like the one I'm wearing today. Tezos Smooth.
Very nice.
And also, yeah, I mean, getting early access to these projects, we're kind of going to give flexibility to them in terms of like how they want to reward their users as well. But so I mean, I can't really speak too much on that side, but you can definitely expect sort of swag and community rewards from our side.
Okay. And I know you mentioned a moment ago. So the best way to make contact with your team if somebody's interested in getting involved is to reach out through X.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just
Okay.
shoot us a DM and we'll get you on board.
Okay. This is all great stuff so far. I'm really excited to learn more. But before we dive into the nitty gritty, are you ready for the world famous TezTalks lightning round?
Let's do it.
Great. Just before we do that, I'd like to announce today's keyword for the 25 Tez that we're giving away today. Today's keyword is !Fortify. Enter the keyword !Fortify below this video on X, and Nightbot will randomly select today's winner who will announce who will announce in the comments below this video on X as well. Okay, now Imran, it is lightning round time. Remember, there are no wrong answers. This is just for fun so our viewers can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
Okay.
Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Pizza or sushi?
Sushi.
Movies or video games?
Video games.
Is this real life or are we in a simulation?
Definitely a simulation.
True or false? Money buys happiness.
False.
Name one thing you absolutely want to do before you die.
Cave diving.
That's a good answer. I like that one. The last place you traveled was?
Indonesia, Lombok.
In 5 words or less, how would your best friend describe you?
Obsessed with crypto and music.
Very good. And finally, what is your favorite thing to do on a rainy day?
Probably play my instruments, play my guitar until my neighbors get angry.
Nice. Okay. Excellent answer. This concludes the TezTalks lightning round. Let's get back into it. Now that we've talked about TZ APAC's role and what you're doing with Fortify Labs, I'd like to zoom out a little bit and talk about how things are progressing Web3 wise in the Asia Pacific region writ large. What can you tell us about the sort of perception of and sentiment toward blockchain technology and Web3 in Asia Pacific in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, in general, sort of sentiment towards it has definitely been getting better, but there's still some ways to go. I mean, sort of a lot of governments and stuff like that have been really looking closely at crypto and I think have been generally quite supportive of its growth. So there's definitely a lot of super talented builders and entrepreneurs within the region, right? In sort of Singapore, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia. So especially Singapore, there's like a high density of really cool projects there that have it's not just like new people joining the space. They've been building for years as well. So I would say Singapore is probably the most advanced in terms of like entrepreneurship and development. But that there's amazing teams all over the region, and we'll probably see that trend grow more as well. There's a lot of incentive for them to sort of build crypto applications. But yeah, I mean, from the retail point of view, I mean, definitely, I think in the past, historically, we've seen gaming really take off in the region. So I definitely expect that this year, as ecosystem, as games launch on different ecosystems, including Tezos, we'll see like a new sort of wave of that come in again. But I think, I mean, from my own perspective, retail is still very much staying within the exchanges, meaning like they'll buy currency and they wouldn't really go out and explore. It's not really sort of in their mind that, hey, you can actually do something with this outside of the exchange. So I think there's a bit more education to go from here. But I definitely People are getting interested again now. I don't think people have that negative of a perception of it compared to like FTX during the FTX days. So yeah, it's definitely getting better. It's growing quickly, and I think the rate of developer growth is definitely picking up as well.
Okay. And as far as end users slash consumers, um, how are those people finding their way into the blockchain space these days? I know you mentioned gaming a moment ago. Is that the
Yeah.
most important sort of relevant consumer facing blockchain tech touch point, or are there others that are attracting people?
Yeah, I think gaming is like the most obvious one, right? Just because so many people play video games, so it's the most natural to them. Um, so yeah, I would say if somebody were to get into crypto, that's probably the easiest way, or like where they would spend most time on, I would say. But I think like there's a lot of super interesting alternatives to that, like especially like in the social space. I think Farcaster is super cool, and stuff like that, right? Or Frentech or something like that. Um, so yeah, I would say that for the average retail user for now, like I said, they sort of look at crypto still as an investment that they keep within the exchange. But
Mm.
once they sort of step out of that and start trying the games, start trying the different applications, like social applications, I think they'll be pleasantly surprised how far crypto has come from a user experience point of view. So I think that, yeah, my personal take is that crypto UX is going to get better than sort of normal applications. So we're definitely on the right path, and if that's the case, adoption will definitely pick up in the region.
Mm.
Yeah.
So within all of that, what about Tezos more specifically? Like, what's your take on how Tezos and its place in the larger blockchain space are perceived in Asia Pacific?
Yeah, so as far as I've been here, Tezos has had a really strong footing on the sort of arts and culture side of things, and that continues to be the case. It's sort of the chain for artists. It's built its sort of reputation over the years, and generally speaking, you know, people launch on Tezos also because it does have that reputation, right? So it's kind of like a network effect for art per se. So although it is very niche, but I think there's a lot of expansion from there, that could take place, that could benefit a lot of different applications that are looking to build on Tezos as well,
Okay.
especially on the gaming side of things. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the space sort of evolves. But I think those artists definitely have a place in even the gaming side of things, right? Like if they were looking to work in a project or something like that. So yeah, I think definitely I see the art side of Tezos within the APAC region continuing to grow, but hopefully, Etherlink sets it up so that it's an expansion beyond that, right? So that
Mm.
it's also the vibrant DeFi ecosystem that we have, and hopefully like some social applications that are coming as well. And yeah, Tezos is already sort of in the mind share of APAC artists, so it has sort of planted its seeds per se. And I think if once Etherlink launches and then the push of adoption comes from there, we'll definitely see sort of higher usage, right?
Okay. And outside of starting up Fortify Labs, which is obviously a very cool initiative that presents some really cool opportunities for people to get involved and for new
Yeah.
projects to come to life. Um, what else does TZ APAC do to sort of drive interest in Tezos and move the sentiment needle in the Asia
Yeah.
Pacific region?
Yeah, so over the past couple of years, we've participated in a lot of different events. We do Token 2049 every year. We did, yeah, we helped a lot with sort of the art activations within the region as well. But this year we are going to be super focused on Fortify Labs, and essentially leveraging all the things that we have sort of built already, right, in
Mm.
terms of the community and the reputation, etc. um, but I think so in terms of adoption, like there's a lot that we can do with the cohort we have itself as well. So hopefully we can do a lot of adoption activities with them, whether it's like going to events and I mean, we're definitely going to have something at Token 2049 as well, where we bring everyone together, our cohort, the compelling projects, users, and we'll make a sort of big hit out of it. So I think that's going to be super interesting. But yeah, I mean, this year we are really focused on Fortify Labs and the value we can provide to these startups.
Okay. And TZ APAC obviously operates in a region with a lot of different countries, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different languages contained within it. And I'm curious, from your perspective, what's it like working together with people from such a diverse region towards a
Yeah.
common goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think luckily enough, Southeast Asians are really kind people. And so I mean, I've had nothing but really good experiences working with everyone in the region. Sometimes there are sort of language barriers, but usually you can sort of navigate, and everyone sort of speaks English or can speak English. But I mean, it's always interesting to to meet people from different parts of the region where we can kind of see similar cultural ties, but some things are like different and interesting. So I mean, generally speaking, I've had sort of no issues, and it's actually one of the things I really love about working at TZ APAC as well, just meeting other people within the APAC region. So yeah, I mean, I have nothing but good things to say. Yeah.
Very cool. And I know that you spoke a little bit about this earlier, but I'm curious if I can get you to expand on that a little bit more. Um, how do you think governments and lawmakers in the region perceive blockchain tech and the businesses and entities that it is sort of generated there? Are
Yeah.
they generally resistant or supportive of what's going on?
Yeah. So I mean, surprisingly, they are quite supportive. So I mean, in Singapore has had many initiatives trying out, stable coins or and its government-backed stable coins and stuff like that. So I would say they're actually quite willing to explore um, and support like entrepreneurs in their building. This I would say the same about sort of where I'm from as well, Malaysia. So I mean, the government is really supportive of anyone who wants to build like a crypto application here. um, and yeah, I mean I would say that, I mean, it does take a bit of education to get them, um, in terms of like to get them to sort of understand what matters within crypto and what is a bit more fluff, right? But I mean, they're definitely looking at it, they're definitely taking their time to learn about it. So I think that's the most important bit, right? And it's unimaginable like 5 years ago or something like that. So I mean, I see it as definitely a positive thing. And it definitely helps to have a government that isn't resistant to change, where they're not allowing anyone to do crypto applications or stuff like that. So
Mm,
yeah, I would say surprisingly supportive actually.
perfect. Um, what's next for TZ APAC? Do you have any other exciting rollouts or announcements in the works?
I think, I mean, next, yeah, just focus on Fortify Labs. So next is getting our cohort up and running. So you can expect some announcements in the near future about the projects that we have, who we're working with, how we intend to work with them. So I think it's going to be super super exciting. Hopefully we can shine a light on not just the projects but the founders themselves as well,
Mm,
and put it in front of everybody, so everybody can sort of get not just a practical feel of the product but a human feel of like who's behind the products as well. And yeah, I mean, I'm super super excited about getting the cohort started.
So as that cohort gets started, and as this thing starts to progress, if we want to keep an eye on things and find out like who the people that were accepted are, what their projects are, and watch them get re-rolled out, what's the best way to sort of keep apprised of what's going on moving forward?
I mean, it's definitely the TZ APAC Twitter. So I think it's just at TZ APAC, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So, I mean, feel free to follow it. We'll be posting constant updates.
Okay. We're almost at the end here. We could go on, but unfortunately, we're running out of time. And before we close off, I'd like to remind our viewers that we're giving away 25 Tez today. To enter, just type the keyword !Fortify in the comments below this video on X. For those who miss out today, we remind you there are awesome giveaways to be found frequently here on TezTalks Live, so keep tuning in. If you'd like to get in touch with us, our social media contacts can be found at tezoscommons.org/TezTalks. We'd love to hear from you. Imran, thanks so much for joining us today. It's always awesome to speak to the folks spreading the Tezos ecosystem's footprint in important regions like Asia Pacific and keeping Tezos at the forefront of the Web3 revolution. Is there anything else you'd like to mention before we sign off here?
No, I think I'm good from my end. Just thanks for having me. Absolute
My
pleasure.
pleasure. We'll check in again as the cohort gets announced and the projects start to come out in the wild.
Definitely.
Okay. To everyone out there in Tezos land, thanks for joining us on the TezTalks live stream. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons, and our awesome guest has been Imran Haqeem, Deputy Head of Lab Strategy at TZ APAC. Now let's go get international.